Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson of HuskerBigRed.com, and joining me as always is my co-host, Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org, and we're here on a huge signing day for Nebraska. There's been 4 new additions total. Obviously, the biggest one is Malachi Coleman, and the recruiting rankings are surging up. So, Danny, how are you feeling today? It's been a pretty kick-ass day for Nebraska.
I couldn't be happier. It's not only been a pretty kick-ass day, it's been a kick-ass couple weeks. And so I'm really excited with how this class has turned out. They were able to put the finishing touches on it, and no small finishing touches either. Some really high quality athletes, and I am very excited about what is in store for this program and what's in store for the future in 2023. This class is incredible.
So were you surprised by Malachi Coleman and getting that commitment today? I mean, we'll start there because that's kind of the big news. Did that catch you by surprise?
Yeah, a little bit, just because, Dion came to visit, and me personally, I would have a hard time saying no to Dion Sanders, but that just speaks to the job that Rhule and his coaching staff have done to try to, firm up the commitments and keep kids in state.
Yeah, I did predict it on my website. I didn't have any intel, but I just when I saw Wilt Fong change his crystal ball, I felt like I know a lot of people say the crystal balls are those people are kind of full of shit sometimes, but his I pretty much trust. And he flips it, but not without reason. And so I felt like there was a reason, and Mike Farrell kind of put out. So they're just it felt like to me like something that Malachi would do. So I honestly I really wasn't shocked. And then when Mike Farrell put out that tweet that, oh, Nebraska fans are going to be happy, I knew that had to be Malachi Coleman. I'm not sure why people have been talking about Dylan Raiola, to be honest with you. I don't think that that's happening today, but getting Malachi Coleman is gigantic. I mean, I love that kid and his ability. He said he's going to play receiver, but possibly not. It's interesting to me unless it's changed, but Barry Jackson still isn't in yet. I'm wondering if there's some connection there. I believe, at least the last time I checked, he's the only expected signee that hasn't signed yet.
And I think he was a Mickey guy, if I'm not mistaken. I think Mickey Joseph recruited him, so maybe there's some kind of just second thoughts there. But overall, I think they did a pretty good job of keeping everybody together and putting their flair on this class. Certainly, a lot of speed, and Eric Fields, the linebacker, I believe 108 tackles in 10 games last season at the high school level. He has a ton of speed, and it's just absolutely crazy. His highlights pop. He's fast. He has good closing speed. He can, get after the ball carrier, and he's going to be, I believe, a starting linebacker very, very soon.
Yeah, it's interesting because you always see these guys that get under recruited and Hayden Moore flipped, and it's funny that Eric Fields guy was unranked, and then all of a sudden now he's ranked higher than Hayden Moore, and it's like, dude, how is Nebraska competing with Arkansas State and Texas Tech for this commitment? I mean, he's 6'3", 195 pounds, had 180 tackles last year, 120 solos. I mean, that's like in 10 games, that's like 12 a game, and yeah, Levante David is the guy. I mean, I don't want to put that super high expectation, but it hurt to lose Ernest Hausman, but I think that Fields can come in and contribute right away. It's nice Nebraska's got Reimer and Heinrich there that can start, but they needed to add some speed back in there, and man, he can do it all. He's an impressive player, and he finds the football. So I feel like this is going to be one of those Matt Rhule specials, and there's a lot in this class. It's a really exciting, fast group of commits.
They needed to add depth at the linebacker position, and at the very least, Fields does that. And I think when you look at a lot of these names, the Baylor wide receiver Josh Fleeks, he doesn't have the most eye-popping statistics, but he does have speed, and I think Nebraska could use him, on like end around type of plays out of the backfield. And it just speaks to the fact that this team wants to be fast. And Fleeks, I thought was a little bit surprising because he wasn't really on my radar. I don't know about yours, Chris, but
Mm-mm.
I think he could really kind of make an impact in this offense in the right role.
Yeah, he kind of came out. He came up on the signing day show from Nebraska. I don't think anybody really knew a whole lot about him. Was a former 4-star recruit. He's played running back and receiver, so I mean, he could play a couple of different roles. I thought maybe he could be kind of a slot back guy, but yeah, I do think we'll see him. Touch the football a little bit, and yeah, adding more speed. I mean, you look at the receiver haul. I mean, just with Malachi Coleman is a guy who's a track star. I'm not sure, what his new 100 time is, but I know he's been under 11 seconds. I mean, and he's fast for being 6'5", 200 pounds. Bryce Turner is 10.25. Jalen Lloyd's 10.4. Matt Rhule said he wanted to have, the 100-meter relay be all full of football players. Well, he's got a few there, and Jaden Doss signed too. But I mean, just that speed, that they lost that in Trey Palmer. They're getting 3 guys that are absolute burners. And so, I mean, I feel really good about this receiving core, whether they add a transfer or not, because I definitely feel like that they're going to find a role for Malachi Coleman next year. And I feel, I said in what I wrote on HuskerBigRed.com that maybe the happiest guy outside of the staff and all the Nebraska fans is, with Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims, because they got some weapons in the passing game.
They absolutely do, and it's crazy when you look at the recruiting rankings. Take that for what you will. Just a couple days ago, or even a week ago, this class was ranked 60th. They're in the low 60s. Now it's ranked 29th. I mean, just the turnaround is absolutely incredible, and with quality players too. And that just speaks to what Matt Rhule has done since he's been here. I mean, his press conference that's happening right now actually was the first time he's met with the media since his announcement press conference on November 28th. So he's been working, and it's showing.
Yeah, he's been busy, and man, he's I think we got undersold at how good of a recruiter that Matt Rhule is, and not just he doesn't do it in the same way as Deion Sanders. He's not giving out the bags and have the the cars and all that stupid crap. I mean, whatever, people can do it. People should be true to themselves, and that's Deion. But Matt Rhule just does it with just smart decisions and smart recruiting, a smart recruiting process. You look at Nebraska, they got 4 kids, I believe, out of Texas. And a couple of them I know were previously, to the staff, but, those were big gets. And then you go into Pennsylvania, you get Vincent Carroll Jackson, who committed today. You get Ramir Stewart, who committed or who signed, excuse me. So, I mean, you look at, those are kind of 2 places where Rhule, had established himself. And I love that, he goes out and hires a high school coach from Florida to help, coach the D line. And then he's hiring reportedly, a Texas head coach. That's going to be a genius move for recruiting. It worked at Baylor. He hired a Joey McGuire, was a high school coach, and he worked for him at Baylor. Now that guy's the head coach at Texas Tech. So, I mean, it's amazing to me how Matt Rhule, wasn't from Texas, but all these coaches love him, and they talk about, he has all these great relationships and he does all these coaching clinics, and he just is a really smart guy. He was talking about, he's going to do all these coaching clinics in the state of Nebraska, and he wants to help the coaches here improve, because if they improve, the players will improve. And it's like, that makes so much sense. It's not really that complex of an idea, but it just makes so much sense. I'm not sure why it wasn't really done before, but I think that I think he's a genius. And I think we're going to be sitting here in a couple of years like, this guy's not paid enough, not worried about what, how much he's getting paid.
Well, in this class alone, they have players from Nebraska, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, California, Georgia, Missouri, New Jersey, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. So they truly span all areas of the country. And, you look at the Texas analyst hire, Bob Wager. He was involved in the last 7 Under Armour All-American games. So he definitely has an eye for talent. He has a nose for talent. And it just speaks to how Matt Rhule has identified areas that he wants to recruit in and has gotten personnel to make it happen, especially in Florida with a guy like Philip Simpson as well. Wager and Simpson are 2 big names and 2 key sets of eyes in 2 key areas.
No, they really are. And just if you're just joining us, we're doing a recap here of early signing day. So, make sure to hit that subscribe button, get into the comment section, let us know what you think. But yeah, it's a really smart strategy. I think the thing I love the most, though, and, one of my takeaways from this early couple of weeks in this first signing day for Matt Rhule is the fact that I think he's putting a fence around the state of Nebraska. He still is kind of mad that they didn't get those couple guys that, Bramer and Yogi, and they went to Iowa State though. But outside of that, 8 signees from the state of Nebraska, 8 of the top 14 players, the number 1 player. I think that was the most I read since 1988. And I just think the way that they're prioritizing kids, I think that's what helps win over Malachi Coleman at the end. I mean, I'm not just speculating, but it just seemed like there was a lot of in-state momentum. And I think that really may have helped, just saying, hey, all these other guys are going to stay home and build this thing, and I want to be part of that. I want to be part of what Matt Rhule is building. So really, I mean, in the future, I mean, and there's some good guys, coming up, Carter Nelson, and I think as far as if there's a player in the state of Nebraska
David
that the
Hall,
Husk,
the wide
yeah,
receiver.
yeah, if there's guys that Nebraska wants, I think they're going to get them. I think at least they've put themselves in a strong position to kind of, keep all the good talent in Nebraska.
Well, and also, he has to make up, lost time with a guy like Zane Flores. People were mad that, Nebraska couldn't land Flores, or they didn't land Flores, but there's only so much he could do. That was a misstep by the last coaching staff, and, you know, he can't necessarily make up for all of the staff's misses, if you know what I mean. And so I think he did a good job of landing as much talent as he could just being here 3 weeks. And so, you know, this has me excited for what he's going to do for 2024 and beyond when he has a full year under his belt, because if he can do this in 3 weeks, who knows what future classes are going to look like. And it has me excited. And that's something I haven't been able to say about Nebraska football in gosh knows how long.
Yeah, and I don't think they're done either. I feel like there's a good chance of Cameron Leonard. I know he was planning to, announce at the All American game. So I'm not sure if, he's going to do one of those things where he signs before and then just announces it that day. But I mean, the other school kind of in the mix is Maryland. I know he took a visit there last weekend, but I feel like there's a good chance that they get his commitment, which would add another, 4-star pickup. Let's see who. I mean, we're waiting for a Johnny Cornelius. That's kind of the last shoe to drop. I wouldn't. I don't know. I feel like it's Ohio State, but I feel like Nebraska has a shot. I don't know. It's trying to read the tea leaves or the emojis of Matt Rhule, and he tweeted something that had to do with a duck and money bags. So I'm not sure if that's at all connected to Cornelius. I know they were in the mix, and I know Phil Knight's throwing around money bags. As Oregon picked up basically three. They flipped 3 recruits today, so and they can say whatever they want. Phil Knight's out there guaranteeing people jobs, and like whatever. You got to use whatever resources you have. But I'm wondering if Cornelius got a big bag and winds up at Oregon, or that I know there's talk at Ohio State too. So, but Matt Rhule, it would not surprise me at all if they able to win that commitment too. Who knows with this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be a packed commitment. Basically every school wants him. So I'm not preparing for a Cornelius commitment, but that would be nice. And I agree, it would be the cherry on top. I mean, Nebraska's already gotten some stellar offensive line prospects for this class. And, I feel very confident about the direction of the line. I think if Rhule kept Rayola, that means that Rhule sees something in him, and maybe having an actual competent head coaching staff around Rayola will do him some good. So, I'm really excited about the direction of the line, and I honestly feel better about the line right now than I did even at the end of last season. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I do. It's funny. Yeah, Maximus Rhule's tweets are Morse code. It's
I've been
kind of
trying to figure it out,
it's the
Max. I
rage
really
of
have.
Nebraska Twitter right now. It's like took over his press conference. It's pretty
Fred
funny.
Hoiberg did some too, as
Yeah, Fred
well.
Hoiberg, Larry the Cable Guy. It's taken on. But he said in his press conference, he's like, if a recruit wants me to do it, I'll do it. So I'm like, he's a smart guy. But yeah, the offensive line. In his press conference, he talked about how there's a few different. He thought there was like 3 schools of thought. He said on offensive line coaching, and that his school of thought kind of matched up with Rayola. They had similar connections. He talked about Phil Flaherty, I believe, former coach for the New York Giants. So I think that was part of it too. And I'm not saying Mark Whipple's a smart coach, but it just did not work out at Nebraska for a number of reasons. I don't think it was only his fault. I just think there just wasn't a lot of direction from the staff. And the one thing is people are worried about Rayola, but Rhule made it pretty clear. He's going to have a say in the offensive line coaching. He wants it done a certain way. So I think that that kind of instills more confidence. And to a man, it sounds like the offensive line really stood up for Rayola as a person. And so that's a good trade, I think, on the recruiting trail. And if he can get good players, I mean, he's got an NFL background. He was a good player. He's played in the Big Ten. So, it's not like he's chopped liver. And sometimes it's easy to make scapegoats out of people. But, if Coach Rhule trusts him, then I think, we all should give him that opportunity and see if the group gets better. I think in some ways they did get better at the end of the year too. And, I can remember saying it a long time ago. I mean, this group is a better run blocking group, but it just seemed
Mhm.
like they never got that rhythm or that opportunity as much as they should have.
Because I never ran the football. I mean, it's pretty hard to get a rhythm when you don't run the football.
when
So
when you have 100 pages in your playbook and one has runs on it, you know.
yeah, and it's like a 2-yard run here and there. It's hard for anybody to get into a rhythm, running backs included. And so, I think with a competent coaching staff that deals with offensive line, I'd be willing to give Rayola another chance. And I think overall, I just look at this class and the amount of in-state kids. I'll say it again, it's huge because what
Yeah.
that does is that is that it builds momentum for 2024. And like we've talked about on our shows before, 2024 has some pretty darn good kids in it.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you start with Carter Nelson and Kalen. If they, I know everybody's talking about Dylan Raiola, and that's the target, but he's a top 400 or 500 quarterback too. So I mean, he's a really good prospect, and I just think it's like he said. You need to recruit your area well, wherever that is, and that's an important part of this thing. And I'm not saying that you have to have Nebraska kids to win, but I think it helps when this program winning means more to those kids. And there's the walk-on program has been here for ages, and it just, if they can get that mentality, that tough mentality back to Nebraska, I think that's going to help. And I really think that they did generate a lot of momentum in this cycle with the way that they closed, and they really came in and prioritized Omaha and Malachi Coleman. I mean, that was really impressive. There was really good kids in Omaha that basically just never got a sniff, it seemed like, from Scott Frost and the staff before. So really good to see all around. And I think we're going to see a lot of classes that are based off Nebraska, Texas, Pennsylvania, and Florida. And that's a pretty good place to have your foothold recruiting wise.
You should at least let the local schools know that you're interested in some of the kids, and that's something that I think this coaching staff has done well in the early going here. It's something that the previous coaching staff did not do well. And so, establishing that foothold is going to be important because there are good athletes here. Should we rely on them for 100% of the production and only recruit in Nebraska? No, but there are good kids here and they should be recruited. So I think, it's a really good job by Matt Rhule and the coaching staff to have, a good amount of Nebraska kids have the Nebraska flair in the class while also expanding to other areas of the country. A balanced recruiting strategy is not something we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and I mean, really, you look at, I mean, yeah, it's absent, I would say a quarterback, but, they got the running back with Ives, I think, who is a really underrated talent, and he's got, a lot of really good measurables. I think he's exactly the kind of person that, can pan out at the running back position. The receiving class, I think, is loaded. I mean, for Bear, you got 4 offensive linemen or 4 guys who could play offensive line. So yeah, I think it's, they checked a lot of boxes. They got some edges. They got, some talented guys in the secondary. Dwight Booty was one that kind of came, carried over, but they did a good job of holding on to his commitment. And Ramir Stewart, I've said it time and time again, but I definitely think, he's a 4-star player. I don't know why he's ranked as a 3-star, but he's a 4-star player to me. I think this class, the ranking has been trending up. And I think once it's, when we look back at a couple of years, I think it's going to look even better, I guess, in a re-rank scenario.
Bryce Turner, I think, too, could definitely be a 4-star caliber player with the type of speed he has. But,
And he's big.
he is
He's
big.
not 5'10". He's like 6'2". I mean, some
Yes.
say either 6'1" or 6'2", but he's 6'2", and he's running the 110-2 people. I mean, that's like freakish.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like a classic case of these recruiting services not going out to see all the kids. And so, recruiting rankings, they do mean something, but I'm more excited to see what these kids do on the field because I do think there's some hidden gems in the class and not just reaches. Good players that, this staff can develop and, make something out of even more than they already are. So, I am really excited about the class. Like I have no idea how Eric Fields is so under recruited. That guy is a monster. And I know I've talked about him already, but I just finished watching some of his highlights and some of his film, and boy, I am excited.
Yeah, so I mean, that is, I guess, one thing, outside of, everybody can say, oh, I love Malachi Coleman, that's not that hard to figure out. But yeah, maybe it's Eric Field, but who are, a couple of the guys, maybe, some sleepers or some late additions that, you're really into? Eric Fields obviously is one of them, but who are some of these guys that are, going to outplay their ranking, I guess?
I would have to say probably Quentin Ives. He didn't sign today, but he's a guy that I've looked at the running back position that
He did sign actually.
or he did sign today. He committed earlier. I'm
Yep.
getting my things confused because there's so much going on, but he's a guy that I think can, really help stabilize the running back position and, play at a high level. He has, that type of Big Ten running style that, I think is really, really, um, you know, kind of useful for the Big Ten. And, I'll just say another guy here today that signed was let me think really quickly. Oh yeah, Elijah Judy. A defensive lineman at a position where Nebraska didn't get a ton of production last year. And so having him, come into the fold as somebody that can probably, I would say, play right away is key. And I know some of these transfers and stuff may not be the best statistically at previous programs, but, guys like Judy, a player like Chief Borders, I mean, Corey Collier, these are guys that I believe will be able to make an impact at Nebraska just because of the skill that they bring and the fresh starts that come along with them coming here.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you're talking about Quentin Ives. Last time I looked at him, he wasn't ranked. Well, now he is ranked. He's a 3-star in the composite, 958 overall, and I mean 62nd at his position. But it's crazy that a lot of these guys that weren't ranked now all of a sudden, every single signee at this point has at least 3 stars. So I mean, that just can all make us feel better about it. But I think that shows that, the recruiting services, they sometimes don't know everything that they think they know. And coaches like Matt Rhule, who know a lot of coaches that are going to say, hey, this is somebody, hey, this is down in Texas, this kid, dominated, these recruiting services don't know about. And that happens all the time. There are guys that break out their senior year of high school all the time, and they get missed because most of the big guys are done with their recruitment by their junior year. You know what I mean? So I think overall though, but yeah, Eric Fields, I absolutely love this kid. When they first offered him, I kind of looked at his list and it doesn't stand out, but when you watch his highlights, and I know his highlights aren't, they're not they're going to show the better plays, but
Right.
man, this kid is just all over the field. He's explosive. He played 5A football. Really like him. I really like Dylan Rogers is the guy that, he's gotten kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit, but another kid out of Texas, and Nebraska's got a bunch of edges this class. It's really kind of, exciting. Maverick Noonan, they got Princewell Umamalian, Dylan Rogers. So I really feel good about, the defensive line additions, Riley Van Poppel on the defensive line, Vincent Carroll Jackson, who was committed to Syracuse, was kind of tailor-made to play in that 3-3-5 or 3-4. I mean, 6'5", 282 pounds. I mean, that's somebody that, can take on a block, and that's going to be able to play in the Big Ten. And so, another guy out of Pennsylvania too. But, I really do, like Jalen Lloyd. And I think that was a really smart move by Matt Rhule. He is a track guy, but he has really good football production. And I think that it's kind of overlooked. And so, I mean, there's some of these guys that even if they don't get on the field right away, there's going to be a lot of schools, I think, in a few years that are like, man, we missed out on that kid.
And when you look at guys like Eric Fields and Dylan Rogers, and even to some extent Riley Van Poppel, those are guys that I think will fit well in a 3-3-5. I mean, for example, just watching Fields, because that's the last person I've watched today, his versatility will be able to help in a 3-3-5, and that's what you need. You need, the corners will, take care of their business because there's 5 of them on the field, but in order to compensate for the 3 down and 3 on the field, you need athleticism and you need speed. And I think a guy like Fields and then players like Rogers and Van Poppel will be able to help with that as well. So I think this defense that Tony White is going to bring in is going to be very conducive to the production of recruits and commits.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, back to the recruiting rankings, which aren't the end all be all, but as of right now, if you're looking at the total rankings, and I think the recruiting rankings are the same, but Nebraska's the top team in the Big Ten West right now. So I think that's pretty impressive. I mean, the Big Ten West does have a bunch of new head coaching hires with, Purdue, Ryan Walters there, and then a Luke Fickle at Wisconsin. But I think that it is impressive the way that, he's been able to put this class together. And I think in terms of just recruits, I think that Nebraska is fourth in the Big Ten. They're kind of right there with Michigan State, kind of in that same realm. But I mean, the fact that Michigan State's class was looking pretty strong over the summer, and now Nebraska's basically even with that class after 3 weeks of Matt Rhule, I think says a lot. And but the thing about that makes me so excited about Matt Rhule, I think, is not only is he a good recruiter, but I mean, his history is that he's a good coach. So he's going to be able to take these guys, I think, and develop them into something.
Well, I mean, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, but this class, and I mentioned it a little bit ago as well. This class was ranked 60th just a couple weeks ago, and now it's 29th. So, that just speaks to, what this class can, do, and just the work that they've been able to do. And I just can't wait to see what they can do with a full season under their belt and hopefully some wins. This is all great, but the product on the field needs to be a little bit better as well. And quite honestly, after this week and the last couple of weeks, I think it will be.
Yeah, and he talked. Coach Rhule talked about Jeff Sims and his addition, and he said that he liked the quarterbacks in the room, but he just was really impressed with Jeff Sims watching Georgia Tech over the years, and I think that was the biggest move that they've made in the transfer portal. I like Judy, I like Borders. Collier, I think, is a really good get. Ben Scott's kind of looking iffy right now, but some O-line reinforcements would help. But reinforcing that quarterback room, we saw that drop off last year, and I think the other guys can play better. But now the fact that you have Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims, even if there is an injury or something there, you've got a dynamic player at that position, and two guys with no doubt like NFL arms and NFL talent. So I mean, just upgrading that quarterback position, that's huge. We see that all the time where a new coach comes in and kind of upgrades the quarterback position, whether it's depth or overall talent, and how that kind of solidifies some wins. And because frankly, this team wasn't that far off last year. If Casey doesn't get hurt and make a couple kicks here or there, blah blah blah, could have easily won 7 games. And I feel like it's if Matt Rhule can fortify some of those things, 7-8 games is definitely doable next season.
The thing about last year, though, was, if a guy like Casey went down, if a guy like Trey Palmer went down, if certain positions went down, I was worried about the depth. And I think with what this staff is showing for the 2023 class and their focus on continuing to add good players at multiple positions, I don't think we'll have to worry about depth. And I think that's a very nice thing to not have to worry about, given what we've experienced over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, the depth I think really has improved. And, yeah, it's just the roster is really taken, really strong shape. And, obviously all these guys, aren't going to come in and play right away. That's, but I do think that we're going to see, Malachi Coleman, like I've been saying, I feel like he can come in and contribute next year, at least, with that athleticism, and throw him some deep balls. I mean, we know that Casey Thompson's one of the best deep ball throwers in college football. So, imagine, that connection and a guy that's like 6'5" and probably not that much slower than Trey Palmer, you know what I mean? And then Marcus Washington, Alante Brown, Jeranian Bonner. I mean, if Thomas Fedoni, I know there was rumors about him transferring, but he, he's still in as far as I know. And if he comes back next year, I think, he's going to have a lot of opportunities. So,
especially when you look at the, quarterbacks coming up in the Big Ten, you have Dante Moore, who flipped to UCLA, Cade McNamara, going to Iowa. These are going to be high-scoring games and high-scoring teams, and you need to have as many playmakers as possible. And, I know Matt Rhule and the coaching staff aren't done with their job. This is only year 1, but they've put themselves in a good position to compete, I think, for the 2023 season. And I'm going to make a bold prediction based on the schedule and, the talent that we've brought in. I could see a 6 to 7 win season next year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, I definitely think the Huskers can win 8 games. I really do.
The schedule is very favorable too, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is going to get better. I do hope that they, add some reinforcements. Hopefully Cornelius tonight. We'll see. He's expected, I think, to announce at 6:30 Eastern, something like that. So yeah, fingers crossed, man. I mean, I know Ohio State has got a lot of talent, and they probably have 2 open tackle positions, and that's where he visited last. I know Tennessee's in the mix there as well, but you never know, man. Nebraska's got a lot to offer, and that was his first visit. So, it's usually either the first or the last. So hopefully it's the first, and that would just be, the cherry on top of the day. So the other thing, we're going to be wrapping up here, folks. We wanted to do about 30 minutes, but thanks for joining us, and make sure that you likes the videos, get, comment your thoughts on Nebraska's signing day, and then hit that subscribe button. We'll have a lot more content coming up this week about, this recruiting class and, looking ahead to next season. But before we wrap up, I'm also watching Cameron Lenhart tonight, and to see if there's kind of any rumblings about a commitment there, or, either way, as long as he doesn't, I guess, announce for Maryland, I'll feel good about it. But at the end of the day, I feel like all the predictions and the crystal balls are on Nebraska there for another recruit that's ranked in the top, 400. I think that would be a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, definitely. And just real quickly, give me a letter grade on what you would give the 2023 recruiting class.
I would have to give it an A right now, just based on, the degree of difficulty and where things were at. With Matt Rhule, it seemed like getting Malachi Coleman was going to be a tough challenge, especially once Deion Sanders entered the mix and no Mickey Joseph. And, he kept him. He built a lot of really goodwill in the state of Nebraska, which I think is going to help going forward. So I would give it an A, and I think it's not done yet. That's the other thing I'll say, but that's my grade. What about yours?
I would definitely give it an A. I mean, I'm trying not to drink the Kool-Aid, but just seeing the caliber of talent in this class, as well as the different areas of the country that this class is spanning. I mean, the coaching staff has been working hard, and this class just shows it. So I'd give it an A. I am extremely pleased, and of course they have to prove it on the field, but I am very, very, very confident in the direction of this program moving forward.
Yeah, Matt Rhule is. Praise Matt Rhule. He did an amazing job, in these last couple of days or these last weeks or so. I think home run hire by Trev Alberts. We do have to see the product on the field, but he's just a genuine guy. There's no fake there, and he's someone I'm proud to have, leading the program, and I think he's going to lead us to a lot of victories. We were talking earlier today, and I said, like, he's going to start churning out 10-win seasons like nothing. So I'm not going to say ever that we're going to win all these championships and all that, but 9-10 wins, I think we're going to be back at that in that time frame, or in that kind of window very shortly. So thanks for everybody for joining us. It's been a great signing day. Check us out for some more content later in the week as we break down what's been a really exciting signing period for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So as always, everybody watching and everybody watching on the replay, thanks a lot, and go Big Red.
Go Big Red.